Welcome to the ANEW Insight Podcast, empowering and inspiring your journey to optimal health. Hosted by Dr. Supatra Tovar, clinical psychologist, registered dietitian, fitness expert, and author of Deprogram Diet Culture. Rethink your relationship with food, heal your mind, and live a diet-free life. I follow my guests' journey to optimal health, providing you with the keys to unlock your own wellness path. Tune in and evolve with us. Hello and welcome to the ANEW Insight Podcast. I am Dr. Supatra Tovar, and I'm super excited to have licensed psychologist and board-certified holistic nutritionist, Dr. Jazz Robbins, with us today.
Hello.
Jazz, I'm so excited.
I'm so excited. I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you for having me.
I am very, very, very excited to pick your brain because Jazz and I are two peas in a pod. We have very,
100%.
very similar brains.
Yeah.
And so it'll be really lovely to get her perspective. Before we do that, I'm going to read a little bit about Jazz, and then we'll get into our questions. Dr. Jazz Robbins is a licensed psychologist and board-certified holistic nutritionist based in Los Angeles, California. She earned her Doctor of Psychology and Master's degree in clinical psychology from Pepperdine University and a bachelor's degree in food science and nutrition from North Carolina State University. Dr. Robbins specializes in trauma therapy, having worked extensively with individuals affected by homicide, combat veterans, and those navigating medical trauma. Her integrative approach combines mental health practices with nutritional interventions, reflecting her research interests at the intersection of complex trauma and nutritional health. Beyond her clinical work, Dr. Robbins is an adjunct professor, author, and performing artist, and the founder of The Active Experience. She serves as the CEO of Healing, Hope, and Love, a Los Angeles-based nonprofit organization. In addition, she is the 2025 president-elect for the Los Angeles County Psychological Association.
Yes.
Welcome, Jazz.
Thank you.
Yay.
Wow, that's a lot.
Well, you've done a lot, and you are a lot, and I'm so excited to pick your brain all about you. And so I want to know what inspired you to take this particular course. Why psychology? Why nutrition? And why the intersection?
Yeah, listen, it wasn't by design at all. This was not a strategic move that I thought of once upon a time as a middle school student or a high school student. My goal and my vision was to go to medical school. I still remembered having a Harvard Med t-shirt as a middle school student, and that was just my dream. And as an undergraduate student, I was majoring in biology with the idea, right, that I would be pre-med.
Me too.
Oh my goodness.
We're so the same.
And as a first-year undergrad student at North Carolina State University, I took nutrition as an elective.
I am telling you.
Oh my goodness. It was the first time that it was the first time that I realized that school could be fun, that learning could be fun, that I could want to show up to class. It was the first time that I was learning things that I could apply that day, that week, to my life, to my family's life, as opposed to like trying to figure out how calculus or trig was going to apply or some of these other theoretical or conceptual things. This was information that I was able to use right then.
Yes.
And I'd never experienced that in school before. I didn't hate school. I always did well in school. However, this shifted my thought process and my idea of what a learning experience could be like.
Yes.
And I ended up going to my academic advisor and saying, oh my gosh, this is heaven, this is life. How can I make this my major? And had I been at a different institution or had I had different advisement, a mentor would have said you should transfer to XYZ University because they have a nutrition major. My university didn't, so we had this sister cousin, food science, and I was able to minor in nutrition. Food science is interesting, like
Yes.
how to make cornflakes crunchy and to stay crunchy, you know, even though you've poured milk over them, those kinds of things, but it wasn't nutrition. So I left my undergrad knowing that I wouldn't be working in the food science industry, but I started private practice as a nutritionist right away.
Wow.
And I was performing right away. I have a one-woman show that sort of like chronicles my life. And so I was performing and living in New York. And my show, because I'm a trauma survivor, it's telling my story of trauma and healing. And after years of performing and seeing audience members like tattered, absolutely tattered, because it wasn't billed as a trauma show or a healing show. I was just looking to get a better agent, looking to get a better manager, or, you know, have a platform that showcased what I'm able to do as a performing artist. And to see folks just sobbing the way that they were sobbing year after year after year. I was living in New York and I said, you know what, let me just pause. And there's got to be something else that I can provide for these folks because they're connecting with the material in deeply personal ways. And so my thought process was, let me see if I can find an agency that I can place brochures in the lobby or even get a therapist to sit with me during the talkbacks when they're asking these sort of desperate questions. And I just heard a tiny whisper in my ear that said, why can't that be you? And I'm like, who? What?
Who?
Why? Me? No, I don't have any debt. I don't want to go back to school. And so that's what happened. I left New York. I came back to Los Angeles. So, you know, Los Angeles to New York. Then I came back and I took my first psych ever class as a master's student. And my thought was, I thought that I was going to have to invent this discipline. I was just like, you know, I'm not leaving nutrition behind. Absolutely not. So there has to be a way, or I'm going to create a way to combine nutrition and mental health. Surely, surely, surely. And 2016, 2018, I was at a LACPA convention and I met Dr. Andra Brosh, who is also a licensed psychologist and board-certified holistic nutritionist. And I was just like, who is this unicorn? Who is this person? Tell me everything you know. I met another person with those same credentials, and both of them said, hey, there's this entire discipline called nutritional psychiatry and nutritional psychology.
That's right.
It's there. There's an entire community. There's an entire body of research. You won't have to invent anything. However, the community is waiting for you whenever you get out and you're licensed. And so that's how I've come to be here. Trust me, it wasn't by, you know, strategic design at all. It was just sort of like my winding road. And nutrition has always been just so important for me, coming from a family with high blood pressure and heart disease and cancer on one side, you know, all of these things, and obesity. And as a child, trying to figure out and make sense of seeing an aunt taking all of these prescription medications, which as a kid was sick behavior to me. I only took medicine when I was sick, but she's up and she's walking, and like it just didn't make any sense to me. Do you understand what I'm saying? So that same curiosity sort of, I just carried it with me as I learned the discipline of psychology and mental health, and it's been so incredible to like find my tribe and my folks who live and breathe this. And I would say the unfortunate part is that it still feels like it's so cutting edge and it's so like,
I know, it's crazy to
on
me.
the front, like we're having to almost knock people over the head to say, hey, don't you realize that what you eat does affect how you
I would
feel?
say, as a dietitian, like there are still plenty of people, even in the medical industry, who don't believe that nutrition plays a direct role in your physical and your mental health. I also have to say, you and I are seriously twins, because I started out in the performing arts as well.
Oh,
So
no
this is,
way.
And we both had these like non-linear paths that got us to where we are. And I think, yes, it is a field out there, but not a lot of people know about it. In fact, when I was interviewing for my doctoral program, the person interviewing me asked me, well, why are you switching directions from nutrition to this? And I was blown away by that. I was like, I'm not switching anything.
Yeah.
This is to add on to what I'm already doing and how I'm already helping people and having the peace of really being able to like delve into somebody's mind. That was what was missing. It's just, getting into the slot right now. So I love that you're doing this. And give me a picture. Nutritional psychology. I mean, how do nutritional interventions, how do they aid a healing journey with somebody, say, who's dealing with trauma? Yeah,
I think, especially in media right now, and it has been for a while, sugar has been talked about, over and over and over again, and anxiety has been discussed in relation to nutrition, but you don't really hear a lot of conversation around trauma in nutrition or depression in nutrition. And the truth is, there are common links. With all of my patients, I like to start with the nervous system to give them some education about that using a traffic light analogy. So when the light is green in traffic, we go when we feel safe, and you might even be dancing a little bit or singing along to your favorite tune as you're going through that intersection, because there's not a lot of worry and concern, not a lot, right? And in the body, when our nervous system is in that green light state, that's an activation of the parasympathetic nervous system, which is where ideally we would be spending the bulk of our day, the bulk of our time, the bulk of our week. In our bodies, that's when we are in this state of rest and digest. And what that means is every single system in the body is running just like clockwork. Our integumentary system, our skin, our respiratory system, our digestive system, our muscular system, our skeletal system, everything is running as it should. When we're in that yellow light state, just as in traffic, we get a little bit more alert. I have to look every single direction because I don't know what's going to happen, because there's a threat of danger. There's a possibility that danger could be afoot when I'm crossing that intersection and the light is yellow. In the body, that's an activation of the sympathetic nervous system, and that's when we're in that fight-flight state, right? So that is tension, that's stress. And if my body, the first thing about yellow is the body was never intended to stay there for a long period of time, right? This was to be a fleeting moment to get us into safety and out of danger. I love the TED Talk by Dr. Nadine Burke-Harris, who talks about adverse childhood experiences, because she explains this really, really well. When someone especially has experienced childhood trauma, and the monster, for lack of a better term right now, is living in the house with me, that yellow light system, that activation of the sympathetic nervous system is firing all the time. The challenge with that biologically and health-wise is when I'm gripped in yellow, all of those systems that I just named that are firing as they should in green, they're not.
Exactly.
So yellow is greedy, that activation of that sympathetic nervous system, it's greedy. It's stealing resources from other systems in the body to give you the opportunity to hear better than you typically hear, to run faster than you generally are able to run, to lift things that are typically too heavy for you. So it's leeching resources from every other system of the body. And for some folks, it's like, yeah, I've got this pain in my elbow that just, the doctors say all the tests are normal, but they say maybe it's stress, or I've got these headaches, or I'm not sleeping well, or I've got these skin challenges. I've changed so many things, but I still keep getting this acne, or I've got this horrible constipation that just won't leave. Well, when we're in yellow, all of these other systems are compromised. they're compromised. So it makes sense that health challenges are going to come up. And then red, where it feels so lonely, so low, and so heavy for folks, right? In traffic, red light, you're disengaged from the activity of driving. You probably take your hands off the steering wheel. This is an overactivation of that yellow. This is an overactivation of the sympathetic. So here, it just feels heavy and like a task to do anything.
Yes.
There's a sock on the floor, and it's been on the floor all week. I can't even bring myself. I don't have the energy. So I've been yellowing for so long that I'm now exhausted, and it's like, you know what, life, you got me. You got me. And if I didn't have to go to work, if I didn't have to go to school, that's that feeling of I wouldn't if I didn't have to, right? So biologically, when we are toggling between yellow, red, yellow, red, yellow, red, the systems that are keeping us healthy and running, they don't have the resources to do what they need to do effectively. And so there is sickness, there is illness, and it could be minor. And for some folks, depending on when the index trauma occurred, and if there's multiple traumas, right, it could be major health concerns. So ultimately, in terms of integrating nutrition into traditional mental health, or conventional mental health interventions, I start there because I think when people know more, they have the opportunity to make better decisions. And just the awareness of, these different states, right?
Yes.
So then I work with folks individually to help them identify green light resources. So what are your green light resources? What are the things, the activities, the people, places, situations that when you are involved in them, you get those green light feelings? And sometimes they're activities, sometimes they're foods. I certainly tell people about antioxidants and anti-inflammatories and immune boosting foods. All of that is incorporated. But primarily for my folks, what I know is if it's prescriptive, they're less likely to engage in it. However, if it's something that comes out of them and they were able to be a part of, like, you know what? We might keep a food mood journal, for instance, right? To just take a look at when I was eating this was my mood. When I was eating that, this is sort of what I was feeling like that week. And using those details to help them notice the themes and the threads in their own diets so that it's not always feeling teachery, professory, or like they're being talked down to. I like to bring my patients along the ride so that they're gaining insights, because when they gain insights, they tell their children, they tell their family, and like, wouldn't it be amazing if folks were just healthy? If folks were just healthy.
That would be the perfect world.
Incredible.
Yes. I love that you are introducing the nutrition into therapy through the nervous system.
Yeah.
And I think that helps people really grasp the importance of not only good nutrition, but what they can do to help regulate their nervous system.
Yeah.
And so with trauma survivors, what do you see as the result when you do introduce through the nervous system?
Yeah. Folks are grateful to have it as an additional tool, number one. Number two, it is certainly a process. So I don't mean to sit here and speak and say folks started eating blueberries and salmon and, magically were better in days or weeks. It is really about helping my patients adopt activities and behaviors that they can sustain, and that that means something to them, right?
Right.
So in terms of themes and commonalities, I see a lot of sleep disturbance. I see a lot of digestive issues. There's research that says that people with PTSD who meet criteria for PTSD have more incidence of IBS or irritable bowel syndrome, for instance. Makes absolute sense. absolute sense. And oftentimes it's, I probably ate something wrong, right? They can't really put their finger on the reason or the cause. And I'm not saying that every person who has a digestive concern has a history of trauma. However, the research does tell us that there's a correlation. By providing my folks with that kind of information, you can see the shoulders just rest, because it is allowing them to play an active role, the active experience. It's allowing them to play an active role in their healing and in their wellness journey in a way that maybe they didn't feel that they had access to, because most healthcare interactions are really prescriptive and the patient being talked to, and this is what you've been doing wrong and this is what you need to do. And that need to do piece, especially, I'm not dissing medicine. However, it's oftentimes the behavioral prescriptions given from medicine, and it's not their training, and I get it, right? Mm-hmm. Things like you need to reduce your stress. For a patient, they don't know what that means and how. So I like to take that piece of advice more than anything and operationalize it individually for my folks, so that they can see, this is my anti-stress medicine. This is my anti-stress activity. This is my anti-stress food. This is my anti-stress supplement. And I don't mean ashwagandha, even though ashwagandha is great, but like things that are calming for them and help to calm and balance their nervous systems.
Yes. So what drew you to working with trauma survivors? Is it from that deeply personal lens? And if you're comfortable talking about that,
sure.
How does that inform and inspire your work with trauma survivors?
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely comes from my personal experience. I grew up in poverty. I experienced a number of traumas as a young child, including physical abuse and sexual abuse, multiples. And we were unhoused for a spell, and unhoused sort of couch surfing with family, and unhoused living in a housing shelter. So this was my childhood, and that was juxtaposed going to a Catholic private school with a uniform and like no kids knowing what was going on in my home, as every day when I went home from school. So felt like very much I was leading this double life where home was not great at all. School was, anything that wasn't home was great. So that's school, that's soccer practice, that's dance class, anything, sleep over at a friend's house, anything. And I'll tell you the blessing of going to the school that I went to. I was one of only African-American students in my grade, oftentimes just a handful of us in the entire school, and this is a school that had grades 1 to 8. And so these were wealthy white kids that I went to school with. The blessing in that is I was able to see a lived experience that was different from my own, so I knew that something else existed. Do you understand what I'm saying? Yes. I saw parents that were loving to kids. I saw kids that loved their parents and had these amazing relationships. So I knew that everybody wasn't experiencing what I was experiencing at my home, and I got curious at an early age. The books that it made no sense. It made sense, but I was just super, super curious about how different two kids' lived experiences could be, and like outsiders not know it. It felt like as a child, I always felt like I knew things that nobody else knew. But yeah, ultimately, I was just incredibly curious about that. I remember being in high school doing research papers on teen suicide. I certainly had thoughts of taking my life, and I was just super, super curious and interested in how one, makes it out. And when I say make it out, makes it out of the trauma, because my dark cloud seemed to just be ever present. So that was the interest. And as a child, I so desperately, as many trauma survivors will say, I so desperately wanted anyone to take notice, pay attention, ask me like a poignant, direct question. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And so when I decided to pursue mental health and psychology, I wanted to be that person for other people, because I remember how just like would a teacher ask? Would anybody just ask? Just ask. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to be that person for folks.
Wow, I'm so incredibly inspired by you. And we are living parallel lives. And I really am blessed to know Dr. Jazz. Dr. Jazz and I are both on the board for the Los Angeles County Psychological Association. And I think that place just attracts the most inspiring minds. So I'm really, really glad to be picking your brain today. We're out of time for this half of this episode, but we're going to be coming back for the second half in just a moment. But I really hope that you tune in for the second half. And there's a lot that we can learn from Dr. Jazz, for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jazz, for
you.
joining us. And we will see you next time. Thanks for tuning into the ANEW Insight podcast. Please remember, the contents shared on this podcast is for entertainment purposes only and does not constitute medical advice. You can find us anywhere podcasts are streaming, on YouTube at my.anew.insight and at anew-insight.com under the ANEW Insight podcast tab. And follow us on our socials at my.anew.insight on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Threads for more updates. Tune in next time and evolve with us.